The HWCDSB is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dishut One Spoon Womton Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations.
Today and this month, we celebrate the excellent strength and faith of the Black community. Faith in Jesus and His Gospels have been an inspiration and foundation for Black communities around the world, both visionary leaders and everyday activists and community members. These roots are as old as Jesus himself. As a child, Jesus sought refuge in Egypt. Jesus' only assistance carrying his cross came from an African man named Simon. And one of the first stories of a baptism and Christian faith was Kinakis, a man from the African country of Ethiopia.
We also acknowledge and lament times where our Christian faith in both historical and current intersections with Black, Indigenous, and communities of color that have often supported racism and prejudice. Our tradition has often whitewashed the life and teachings of Jesus Christ or used Christianity as a tool for colonization, oppression, and white supremacy's most hateful and violent actions. Yet we know this is neither the truth of Jesus' life and message nor the faith God wants for us today. As we pray together to begin our Black History Month Assembly, we root ourselves in the life and teachings of Jesus, and we thank God for the faith of the Black community, and ask for the desire to deepen and live that faith authentically.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Prophets and elders welcomed Jesus' birth as salvation for all nations.
We give thanks for the voices of elders and prophets of many nations who have come before us, calling us to walk the path of righteousness.
Jesus as a child knew what it was like to leave his homeland as a refugee when threatened with violence by government forces.
We join the prayers of Jesus' mother that God will cast down the mighty and powerful from their thrones and lift up those they have cast down.
Jesus ignored pressure to silence and send away young voices and lifted them up, saying, "It is to such as these that the kingdom of God belongs."
We ask for wisdom for our community to safely elevate and listen to the voices and perspectives of Black youth, and wisdom and courage for young Black voices as they speak.
Jesus taught and modeled that at God's table, not only does everyone have a place, but people of faith are called to look around and make a place for those who may have been excluded.
We ask for insight to question who is not included in our tables, conversations, school and community activities, and leadership, and to ensure these places and platforms are accessible.
Jesus healed and fed those who needed food and wellness first.
We give thanks for the contributions of the Black community in healthcare, community support, and wellness as innovators, researchers, and community leaders.
From his birth to his death, Jesus lived colonized and controlled by an empire that threatened his people and his life.
We embrace the new kingdom that Jesus preached, not of oppression and domination, but of justice, peace, and joy.
Jesus' life on earth ended as he was falsely accused and arrested, tried and killed by the empire who ruled his people and community.
We ask for conviction and courage to nurture, protect, foster cultural, spiritual practices rooted in diverse cultures and communities, especially if they are threatened by oppression or commercialization.
Jesus saw commercialization, wealth, and profit given priority over the most sacred rituals of his culture and faith. When he saw this, he flipped the tables.
We proclaim our hope and belief that have been so important to many communities that suffering and death are not the end of our story. Jesus, who is the truth, is also life that conquers death.
Jesus chose women to be first witnesses of his hope, of the resurrection, and to the apostles on Easter morning.
Help us go forward, filled with hope, to be witnesses to all we will commemorate and celebrate today, with a commitment to ensuring our school community honors and elevates these voices and stories in the months and years to come.
Good morning, Cathedral Gales. My name is Sienna, and this is Kiara, who will be filling in for our friend Jasmine, who unfortunately could not be here today. We are here today to celebrate Black voices, stories, and ideas. There are two themes for this year's Black History Month. We will begin by focusing on Black health and wellness, which is fundamental to the development and betterment of the Black community. We can no longer simply ignore, accept, and justify the ongoing racial injustices and microaggressions. Instead, we need to work towards inviting love and equitable opportunities. This month is a time of recognition for us as we continue to fight and persevere through a society systematically built against us. From the medical field to education, Black voices and experiences are repressed and undervalued. Mental health is a difficult and heavily stigmatized topic to discuss, and one that lacks the resources for many. Therefore, it goes without saying how unbearable it usually is for a Black person to carry the burden of feeling alone and being afraid to ask for help. It is time to accept that Black people will always be present in our country and around the world. It is time to collapse the walls of hate and integrate us into a new culture that values and supports us. This leads into our second theme, which is February and Forever. The current impression is that we all disappear on March 1st, so there is nothing more to talk about, but obviously, we're here for the long run. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Our culture and ideas live long past the short month that we've been limited to. Let us make February last forever by celebrating us forever. Listen to Black voices the same way that you would listen to our white counterparts, and support us the way that we would support you behind the scenes without question. This month is not for simply acknowledging Black pain. It is also to remind the world how valuable we are and to abolish racism. I've had my fair share of prejudice experiences, and they have all made me feel hopeless and unworthy. Slurs have been thrown at me in public, stereotypes have been assumed of me, and I can't count the number of times that I've been pet like a zoo animal because of my hair. Anti-Black racism needs to be integrated into our education to avoid the circumstances that many people and I have suffered. It doesn't have to be a normal for us anymore. No one deserves to feel this way, and I pray that no Black person in the future will know such prejudice and microaggressions. First up, we are so delighted and honored to welcome our first speaker, our very first equity officer at the HWCDSB, Miss Alicia Ralph.
Good morning. Thank you, Kiara and Sienna. Good morning, staff, students, and community partners. My name is Alicia, and I am the equity officer here at our board. I'm honored to be here at Cathedral to take part in your celebration of Black history, a celebration of Black excellence. What these past 2 years have showed us is the way that racism manifests when grossly ignored or left unchecked. For me, every month is Black History Month. There is no month that my pride in Blackness wanes. This month and every month, we need to remember the legacy of those who came before us, who not only paved the way, but carried the bricks on broken backs that have built the road to carry us forward on this journey. Let us not forget that not all history makers are well known. They are everyday people who are here elevating the Black community, Black excellence. Some of those surround us today and are found in your classrooms and community around you. I encourage you also to acknowledge the African Canadians who have made significant contributions to our country. When we celebrate Black History Month from a local perspective, it becomes more personal and more relevant. This year, we have learned about the rich Black history here in Hamilton and how the Black community has contributed significantly to the history and cultural diversity here. We know that there is much more work needed, more bricks to be laid, more work to ensure that our Black brothers and sisters are able to realize their fullest potential in living color, proud and able to experience the fullness of humanity, to become the full human person that God calls us to be, experiencing the fullness of joy and life. The theme of Black History Month this year is February and Forever, reminding us that we should celebrate Black history throughout the year. Each year has a different theme, but it does not mean that what we learn remains in the month of February. It does not mean this learning is archived and forgotten as the month of March approaches. The focus is to continue to reflect on these themes throughout the year. So let's continue to focus on allyship. Let's focus on how you can help eradicate racism, as it is not a past issue that has been solved, but continues to be an everyday experience. As Arthur Ashe notes, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And I add, do more every day. So as we remember and celebrate, let's commit to a better future, a future that is filled with love and equity for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ralph, for your attendance and for your powerful, insightful words. We are so excited to have you here and look forward to learning and building a more equitable community together. Next up, let's focus on mental health and wellness for the Black community.
My name is Dion Hamilton, but the community knows me as Lucky. I was born and raised in the north end of Hamilton, and I grew up in a single-parent household. We didn't have a lot in financial resources, but we were rich in spirit, family, and community. My ticket to a better life and better opportunities came through music, which opened up many doors for me to study and perform around the world. However, my heart also resides in seeing my young brothers and sisters in the community realize their dreams are possible as well. Currently, I help to promote the conversation about Black mental health and wellness through my role as a health and wellness connector. In this role, we get to connect students to mental health and wellness resources at school and in the community, which looks like connecting students to physicians, clinics, therapists, other mental health supports, or supports that focus on your wellness, such as leadership programs, volunteer opportunities, and extracurricular activities in the community.
Hi, my name is Ashley Montague, and I am one of your health and wellness connectors. I work for Refuge Center for Newcomer Health at Cathedral High School and Bernie Custis Secondary School here in Hamilton. In addition to that, I am one of the co-founders of Black-Owned Hamilton. I started this with my sisters to help celebrate, showcase, and explore Black-owned businesses here in the greater Hamilton region. So through my work as the Health and Wellness Connectors, it is our job to connect you, the students, to mental health and wellness programs within the school and within your communities.
My name is Francis Atta, and I am a community worker, author, motivational speaker, mental health activist, and also the social worker at Cathedral High School. So my story is that I grew up in a historically marginalized community in Toronto, the Jane and Finch community, where we had a lack of programming and opportunities for people, for young people and people that lived in the community. We had a lack of positive role models and a lack of resources, especially with getting supports for mental health. So I witnessed many of my family and friends from the community who were affected by these circumstances, and seeing this motivated me to go to school, learn about mental health and health, so that I could make a difference in my community and in others.
I think have a mindset that in order for you to seek mental health counseling, that something has to be wrong. And I think that we should remove that stigma. You know, we're taught as students growing up from our doctors that we should, you know, eat well and exercise because it's good for our body. So for example, going for a run is good for our heart. And you want to go for a run so that it prevents you from getting a heart attack, right? So just like how you would exercise and feed your body with the right foods, you want to seek mental health counseling before something goes wrong. It is good to be able to talk to somebody who's outside of your circle, who's outside of your day-to-day interactions, like who will be objective.
Some signs that might indicate that you might need support are that if you're having trouble sleeping, if you're seeing changes in your eating habits, high to low moods, you're constantly worrying, overuse of substance, thoughts of suicides, you can't carry out daily activities. These are all very important indicators that you should definitely talk to somebody about how you're feeling or what you're going through. If you don't talk to anybody about it, then nobody will know you're going through it and they won't be able to support you.
Start with one. One is so important because it's where everything begins. In a world that shouts the bigger, the better, sometimes this bigger mentality can make us feel inadequate. Sometimes it can stamp out something great before it even begins. You know the feeling when you have a vision for something great, but it just seems impossible when you're at the starting point. So then you just don't do anything at all. My message to you today is don't be afraid or ashamed about starting with just one. In fact, celebrate that start.
Going to therapy, talking to somebody about mental health issues is a way of training your mind and training your body and training your emotions so that you remain in a great mental health state before something goes wrong.
Everyone on this planet experiences mental health. Myself, your favorite rapper, your teacher, and your friends. We all go through stress and depression. It's something that is very common and normal. So if you feel like you need support, don't be afraid to ask for help. Understand that you are not alone and we're all in this together.
Thank you to Lucky and Ashley, our wellness connectors from Refuge, and Mr. Ada. We are so thankful for your presence and amazing ongoing contributions to wellness in our Cathedral School community. Next, please welcome our Indigenous Youth Advisor, Mr. Muir.
Hello everyone. Tolundax de Youngets, Nepchi Nathan Youngets, Night Orsoluna Geha. Ganica Haga Nevaga Honjoda, Dachno Onon the Go Nidawageno. My name is Talundaxte, but my English name is Nathan. And I come from the Mohawk Nation and from Hamilton, Ontario. I'm very proud to be up here and say a few words and share a dance in unity with our Black community here at Cathedral. In history, Indigenous peoples and Black peoples have coexisted for much longer than we initially anticipated. For example, when President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removals Act in the 1830s, he unknowingly established a precedent where Muskogee Creek peoples and Black slaves that escaped from their oppressors joined together and moved to the swamps of Florida to live in coexistence with each other. From that point forward, for the next 50 years, they would fight against the US military and they would actually win against them. Individuals like Muhammad Ali would stand with us in our American Indian movement in the 1970s. And individuals today, like basketball player Kyrie Irving, would reconnect with their Indigenous roots, their Lakota roots. Back in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, I remember looking at my then partner, who is Jamaican and Taino from Jamaica, and saying to myself, we need to be doing something about this. as Black and Indigenous presenting. I stood with the Black community then, I stand with you now, and I always will stand and dance for you. So please accept this stance in unity. Nyawa, miigwech, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muir, for exemplifying the continued and deep connection between the Indigenous and Black community. Our next segment is on cultural appropriation from Mr. DeSouza's history students, Fatim, Angelina, Fardoza, and Anthonique.
This presentation may be controversial for some, but these things must be said in an attempt to move forward as a society. The problem with appropriating things from a certain culture is that it is misunderstood as something that can be done for fun or to look good. In truth, aspects of cultures are incredibly significant to the culture they originate from. They cannot be used for any other reason as it takes away from their actual meaning. What eventually happens when culture gets appropriated is that the original people of that culture lose all claim and importance to their own history. Ironically, when people of the culture use these aspects for their proper intention, they are looked down upon and marginalized. The people co-opting an original culture feel as though they are being respectful without understanding the true meaning and origins of that culture.
Let's break down cultural appropriation. The normalizing of mocking or borrowing cultures that belong to oppressed groups has further allowed society to extend racism and discrimination without a thought. Some people may ask why this is such an issue, because it seems like others willing to participate in different cultures is good. The misunderstanding between appreciation and appropriation is the problem. When cultural elements are taken and used in an exploited and disrespectful manner, this becomes problematic to the groups it originated from because they are minimized to certain stereotypes. This also reinforces unequal power dynamics and contributes to systemic racism because people of color are often looked down upon for celebrating valuable parts of their heritage, but majority groups adopting the same traditions and practices receive different or even positive reactions when it does not hold any cultural significance to them. We decided to take some examples of cultural appropriation and explain why it is devaluing and unacceptable to Black culture.
Cornrows and braids. Wearing cornrow hairstyles is highly offensive to the Black community because not only is it a mockery of our culture, but it is also dismissive to the deep appreciation we hold to our old-time traditions following hairstyles, braids, and other accessorized aspects of our culture. Wearing cornrows as non-Black people also makes us feel uneasy and unappreciated. Considering all that was said, do not wear cornrows. Traditional clothing as costumes. Taking part in Halloween and wearing traditional clothing as costumes is a very big don't when talking about cultural appropriation. Cultural clothing wear in any culture is a way of celebrating a particular event of that nation that usually stems from the history of their culture that have been passed to them over time. In some countries, people wear cultural clothing to represent unity. Representing our culture is so important to us because it developed who we are as human beings, and therefore mocking them as a Halloween costume is disrespectful.
Blackface. Blackface is when the opposite race darkens their skin to mock someone of African descent. Blackface is rooted in centuries of racism and popularized during the Civil War, and now has turned to blackfishing, which is seen in our society an alarming number of times. Instead of appreciating Black culture from the sidelines, there's a need to own it, to participate in it without wanting the full experience of Blackness and systemic discrimination that comes with it.
We agree that there is a fine line between appreciation and appropriation. It's important to take the time to educate and inform yourself about cultural diversity.
Taking initiative to immerse and embrace yourself in various communities is progress in growing a true understanding of cultural significance.
Making a difference in our community starts by small actions such as purchasing items from direct curators and supporting local Black businesses.
This would go a long way to helping understand Black culture. The first step is to educate yourself, and that starts with a moment like this.
Thank you for team Angeli. Oh, yeah, clap. Yeah, clap. Thank you for team Angelina, Fardosa, and Anthonique for your powerful, informative, and extremely relevant message. Our next segment is on Intent versus Impact by Mrs. Martris.
Have you ever intended for something to happen one way, only to get completely different results? Maybe you had good intentions, and you wanted to make improvements at work or at school or in the community, but the result severely impacted people and not in a good way. This is intent versus impact. When it comes to intention and impact, remember that they are separate conversations. Intent is how you think or feel. Impact is how your actions make another person feel. Your intentions may be good, but that doesn't erase a negative impact. Using intention to explain away the impact can make the person harmed or hurt feel unseen or unheard. The main message of these types of conversations is that when someone does something hurtful or offensive to another person, intent is not what's most important when gauging the appropriateness of an action. The point is that we really need to focus on the impact. Was someone hurt by something? Was there a negative outcome? Did someone suffer? And if so, that is what's important to focus on. People attempt to deflect criticism about their oppressive language or actions by making the conversation about their intent. But what does the intent of our action really matter if our actions have the impact to further harm and marginalize or oppress those around us? This especially rings true when we're dealing with the ways in which our identities intersect, and the ways that our privileges and our experiences may oppress. For people who experience privilege, this is where listening becomes vitally important, because our privilege can often shield us from understanding the impact of our actions. In those moments, we need to step back and listen. If we refuse to address, listen, or empathize with the impact of our actions, and instead try to ensure that our intent stays at the center of the conversation, this causes further conflict. So how do we fix this? We need to listen to the negative impact. We need to reflect on how we've impacted that individual, apologize for our actions, and work to do better in the future. Exploring why harm was caused in the first place is necessary to holding people accountable. And this requires restructuring our beliefs to understand that impact deserves to be addressed on its own without bringing in the intent. And this can be very helpful when working towards building relationships. And when we think about it, that's how empathy and living a Christ-like love works. When we set aside our own needs and wants in order to listen and focus our attention on the voices of the marginalized and oppressed. God, through the incarnate Jesus, willingly relinquished power, status, and reputation and privilege when he took on human flesh. And Jesus modeled self-emptying love that lifted up the lowly and brought justice to the oppressed. Look at how intent and impact has affected the lives of many in the Black community. How many Black people who contributed to our society were left out of our study of science and history books, even though the intent was not to exclude, but it did negatively impact. And that is not Christ-like love. This is why Black History Month is so important, as it is a time to illuminate the contributions of those who have been otherwise ignored or negatively impacted. So this February and beyond, let's celebrate Black empowerment and achievement, as well as the legacies of strength and struggle against racism and the effects of intent versus impact on the Black community. Now and always, let us intentionally work to reflect Black excellence while being mindful of the impact we have on the Black community and our brothers and sisters globally.
Thank you, Mrs. Martris, for your extremely powerful message. We miss you at CHS, and thank you for continuing to empower us with your knowledge and unwavering faith. In our next segment, Vanessa and Paige will highlight the significance of Black History Month to our CHS community. If all in attendance will turn towards the screen at the back, please.
Black History Month mean to you?
Hey Cathedral, Black History Month is a very important month in our calendar. It's not only to celebrate our Black brothers and sisters and their history, but it's a month that we can educate ourselves on understanding the plight of our African Canadians and Americans as they have endeavored through history and all the challenges that they faced.
Black History Month to me is really important because it highlights our history as Black people.
It's a time where we acknowledge our ancestors who have overcome racism and slavery.
Growth and recognition as a community.
I think as a teacher, Black History Month is a chance for me to learn about other perspectives that are different than my own.
I think it means power because most of our society is influenced by Black communities and Black culture, like our music, our fashion, lots of different things, our education, but we're not taught a lot of that.
But this month also is very important for all BIPOC people as well, so that we understand what unity is.
I think as a teacher at Cathedral, I try to provide a safe place, I guess, so students can ask questions, we can have discussions, and talk about Black history.
It means to educate people that are less educated about it and may have questions.
Relearn our collective history, relearn the things that we were never taught in schools.
Black History Month means like a time we finally get recognized after being unrecognized for so long.
It's important for our students to see us willing to learn about the world and our history from as many perspectives as we can.
I feel my role as a teacher is to first listen to my Black students and to hear their stories.
We've come a long way. We've been able to overcome a lot and persevere through many situations.
Black History Month is a time to acknowledge and have conversations about the importance of Black history.
I think it's a time to reflect on our past and move forward as a society.
I want to be here to support all of the Black and racialized students as in my role as a student success teacher.
So I think it meant just power and creativity and freedom.
To bring to light the situations that happened in the past, because they're obviously not over and people need to learn.
But it's also a time where we celebrate and rejoice with our African American brothers and sisters because they have given us hope. The hope that they have given us is that we are allowed to be who we truly are, regardless of our skin color.
The rich and vibrant cultures, histories, and perspectives of our Black community, especially the contributions they've made.
This is a month where you should embrace your heritage, get to know more about different heritages, and just kind of grow from there.
February is Black History Month, a time where we recognize the achievements of Black historical figures and discuss modern problems involving the Black community.
There are numerous topics to discuss when it comes to Black history and racism. Today we will be talking about microaggression, a topic that doesn't get addressed enough.
In this video, we will go over what a microaggression is, different types of microaggressions, how it affects people, and what we can do about it.
Microaggression is a statement, incident, or any sort of interaction between those of different races or cultures that is regarded as an instance of subtle, unintentional, or non-physical aggression. For example, a racist joke that can come in multiple forms, such as jokes, stereotypes, comments, or reactions that may not be intentionally hurtful. However, just because they're not intentional doesn't mean anybody was hurt.
Microaggressions are not just limited to race or ethnicity either. Microaggressions can be about your sexual orientation and even physical or mental wellness. However, we will be mainly focusing on cultural or racial microaggressions. There are 3 types of microaggressions.
The first, most visible type of microaggression is called microassault. This is the least subtle of the 3 and is commonly carried out with full knowledge and intent. I guess we'll call that bold racism. An example of this would be
Be what your kind human.
Another example of microassault would be something like clutching your purse when walking by a black person, or even a store clerk following a person of color through a store because they think they're going to steal something. These are both good examples of a microassault.
The second type of microaggressions, which are more hidden and subtle, are known as micro-insults. Micro-insults are comments or actions with underlying meaning or backhanded compliment. An example being,
Where are you from?
"Oh, I'm from Toronto."
No, but like, where are you really from?
You also find many jokes being micro-insults, which mainly contain stereotypes of a marginalized group shared in a way to be comedic when it actually just comes at the cost of someone else's enjoyment.
The third and final type is micro-invalidation. Micro-invalidation is telling a marginalized group that their experiences of prejudice don't matter and that they're being overdramatic. For example, ordering food. Do you want something?
Sure.
Wait. Let me guess. You want fried chicken, right? Right?
No, why would you say that?
Just a joke. Micro-invalidation is also connected to environmental microaggression, which is when a person's environment may seem unwelcoming, or their environment sends a message of invalidation, causing them to feel uncomfortable. Try thinking of a mosquito bite. Getting bitten a few times doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's uncomfortable and annoying.
There are many people who argue microaggressions are not real and are offensive. They are seen as controversial because they are mainly psychological and hard to prove. However, this is not the case. Microaggressions can lead to high levels of depression, lower levels of positivity and happiness, and self-doubt, frustration, and an overall worse mental wellness. We live in a society which promotes bias against people who are different and marginalized.
Microaggression and gaslighting go hand in hand. Gaslighting is the psychological manipulation of a person that causes the victim to question the validity of their experiences. When microaggression happens, many people don't realize what they're saying is wrong. This can lead to denying the truth or turning a blind eye. This is harmful because it makes the person defending themselves feel better, but it invalidates the other person. An example of this would be someone saying, "I have black friends, I'm not racist." Another example of microaggression and gaslighting is the All Lives Matter movement. By saying all lives matter, a person is invalidating the trauma of a black person and also making the issue seem smaller than it actually is. Gaslighting may be psychological, but it takes a toll on a person emotionally and can lead to an impact on someone's mental health and self-esteem.
Something else that is important to acknowledge is mispronunciation of names. This can and should be recognized as microaggression. If you're unsure of how to pronounce someone's name, simply ask them.
Don't just say their name, butcher it, and give no apology. We should be more aware when it comes to microaggression. Also, be sure to educate others if they ever commit microaggression. Additionally, we should explore our biases, review common interactions, reflect on connotations we may have, and engage with different communities.
In a situation where you have committed a microaggression, just apologize. Learn from your mistake and be sure to ask politely about any ethnic questions and to not ignorantly talk about their cultural or racial differences.
Microaggression is one of the most subtle forms of racism, and because of this, we don't talk about it as much as we should. Microaggression is one of the many things that feed into racism.
By talking about what we have done wrong, admitting to our faults, and learning from our mistakes, we are slowly becoming better allies. Even though we may be becoming better allies, we haven't found a solution.
Racism is a battle we have to fight our whole lives and have to constantly educate ourselves about.
In the words of John Webster, knowledge is power. Train smart, obtain it.
Thank you, Josiah, Peyton, Kiara, and Ava, for creating such a wonderful and well-researched segment on two issues so prevalent in our society today. Next up, please welcome our Cathedral Step Squad.
physically. Girl, what you doing to me? Girl, make it easy for me.
Make some noise for your CHS Step Squad. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Ms. Carabas and the CHS Step Squad for always stepping up. Who wrote that pun? Mr. Ooh. In our next segment, we have Ms. Craig, Madame Silvestri, and Mr. Trabuco with a special message on white fragility and privilege.
White, it's not my issue to talk about. Or, but I'm not racist. Or, at least Canada isn't as racist as America. You could be entitled to... Oh wait, you could be entitled. We're talking about racial privilege and what happens when people with that privilege get uncomfortable and react in ways that aren't helpful and actually make the impact of racism worse. As a person in a position of privilege, you may be vulnerable to WFS, White Fragility Syndrome. Symptoms may include discomfort, not wanting to rock the boat or discuss racism, feeling dread before those conversations.
Did you hear next week? Another guest speaker about racism. Another one of those.
Feeling uncomfortable during conversations of inequality and injustice. Whispering or being uncomfortable mentioning racial characteristics.
Was it a black student?
Avoiding language that is specific or avoiding naming communities or discussing issues.
We all belong here. That's all we have to say about that, right? And we are all one race, the human race.
Symptoms also include defensiveness, automatically being defensive or discounting when experiences are shared.
It couldn't have been that bad, honey. Yeah, did it really happen that way?
Defaulting to defense mechanisms like,
I don't see color. I have a black friend and they're totally okay with it.
pivoting to discuss your struggles.
Well, when my family came here, they had nothing and they worked hard for everything that we have.
Acting as if you've been accused of being a horrible person and thinking of racism as a good or bad person instead of a system we all live in.
Well, I never.
Other symptoms include excuses. For example, not centering current and past experiences that are not inclusive or inequitable.
We have hope that things will be better in the future.
Using time periods as an excuse.
Those words were okay. It's just really the way it was back then. What are we gonna do? Erase our history?
Playing devil's advocate instead of listening. The devil's doing okay. He doesn't need an advocate.
If we look at it from the other side...
A focus on intent instead of impact.
They're a good person. I don't think they meant anything by it.
Asking for moderate compromises or patience.
You have to be patient. These things take time. Change isn't gonna happen overnight.
WFS is sometimes confused with thinking it cancels your other struggles. Don't worry, they'll still be there. You just haven't had this one. Thinking racism is just bad people, not a system we are all living in. Demanding free emotional labor. Don't ask things you can Google or that exist in quality resources. Don't show off your shock. But great news, treatment is available. Don't delay because it takes a lifelong commitment to recover. Treatments include listen and learn. Commit to being uncomfortable and challenged. Center lived experiences when listening and making decisions. Response to feedback of experiences of racism is accept, thank, think, and support. Understand supremacy, superiority as systems instead of just bad people, and start looking for evidence of those systems. Ask what structures have been put in place in your life that protected you from having to think about this before. If you or someone you know is suffering from WFS, take action today.
Wow, Ms. Craig, Madame Silvestri, and Mr. Trabuco bringing the heat with that one. Thanks for sharing such an impactful message with us. Let's keep... Start again? Yeah. Wow, Miss Craig, Madame Silvestri, and Mr. Trabuco bring in the heat with that one. Thanks for sharing such an impactful message with us. Let's keep our show going with a musical number. Welcome to the stage, Nosen and Joy, doing a rendition of Beyonce's Brown Skin Girl.
Brown skin. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearl. You're back against the wall. I never trade you for anybody else. Say brown skin girl, your skin just like pearl. You're back against the wall. I never trade you for anybody else. Say. She said she grew up really poor like me. Don't believe in nothing but the Almighty. Just some little jeans and a pure white tee. She never did forever be nobody wifey. So while I'm in a pretty boy, her heart is a myth. Play it like a villain cause she caught in a wave. Tonight I am walking away. 95 on the mind, yeah. Tonight I might fall in love, depending on how you hold me. I'm glad that I'm calming down. Can't let no one come control me. Keep dancing and call it love. She fighting but falling slowly. If ever you are in doubt, remember what mama told me. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearl. You're back against the wall. I never trade you for anybody else. Say brown skin girl, your skin just like pearl. The best thing in all the world. I never trade you for anybody else. Say pose like a trophy when Naomi's walking. She need an Oscar for the pretty dark skin. Pretty like Lupita when the camera closing. Drip Uncle Levy when my Kelly's rolling. I think tonight she might braid her braid. Melanin too dark to throw her shade. She minds her business and winds her way. Go like 24K. Tonight I might fall in love, depending on how you hold me. I'm glad that I'm calming down. Can't let no one come control me. Keep dancing and call it love. She fighting but falling slowly. If ever you are in doubt, remember what mama told me. Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearl. You're back against the wall. I never trade you for anybody else. Say brown skin girl, your skin just like pearl. The best thing in all the world. I never trade you for anybody else. Oh, have you looked in the mirror lately? Wish you could trade eyes with me. Cause there's complexities and complexion, but your skin it glow like diamonds. Skinny like the earth you be giving birth. Take everything in life, baby, know your worth. I love everything about you from your nappy curls to every single curve your body natural. Same skin that was broken, be the same skin taking over. Most things are the focus view, but when you're in the room, they notice you because you're beautiful. Yeah, you're beautiful.
Nosen and Joy, that was incredible. Thank you for sharing your beautiful voices with us with such an empowering and uplifting song. In our next segment, we want to introduce our very own wellness connectors from Refuge. Please welcome Lucky.
so fed upness, I only have one life to live. So I'm going and party for the joys of life you give. Or when the things around me sink, I'm not gonna drown, I start to swim. So don't even try me, cause I know I was born to win. So we go jump, we go jump it up, and then we get on our knees and give God thanks for the moment we're living. Yeah, yeah, live up on this we living. So put your hands up and let me jump up, and we go pour love. I need a full cup, the whole our vibes now. Nothing can take with this moment from me. Oh, I believe I was born to be free. So don't try to stop me with no negativity. I believe I was born to love me. So I'm gonna live my life like a party. I believe I was born to be free. So don't try to stop me with no negativity. I believe I was born to love me. So I'm gonna live my life like a party. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. My life like a party. Oh, oh, oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, my life like a party. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, my life like a party. Yeah. Too blessed to stress me not fret. All this drip me class the stairs wet. I don't care what nobody says, I'm going. Life is short, no time for regret. So keep pushing, can't tire yet. Even when you're full of sweat, gotta make it by any means. So we go jump, it up, and then we get on our knees and give God thanks for the moment. Yeah, yeah, they're up on this we living. So put your hands up and let me jump up, and we go pour love. I need a full cup, hold our vibes now. Nothing can take with this moment from me. I was born to be free, so don't try to stop me with no negativity. Oh, I believe I was born to love me, so I'm gonna live my life like a party. I believe I was born to be free, so don't try to stop me with no negativity. I believe. Come on, we're gonna live our life, so jump my life like a party. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, my life like a party. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, my life like a party. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, my life like a party. Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, my life like a party.
All right. Thank you, Lucky, for that incredible performance. We are so thankful to have you and Ashley here as our wellness connectors. We would like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today, and we hope that our messages have been received with open minds and empathetic hearts. We also hope for our community's humility in acknowledging that the road to building a more equitable, inclusive, and anti-racist community is still working in progress. We must commit to this difficult journey as a community in order to make meaningful progress.
It is important to understand that events like this do not happen without hours of collaborative work. We appreciate every single student who worked tirelessly on this project. Your commitment and dedication to educating and empowering our community is inspiring. To our Black student population, we see you, we hear you, we accept you, and we stand with you. You are valuable, you are resilient, and your voices have the power to change the world. However, these initiatives should not simply fall to our Black and racialized community members. It is not their job to carry the burden of delivering an education beyond colonial ideologies and perspectives. The difficult process of decolonizing ourselves is one that every single member must undertake in order for our community to progress.
Alicia Ralph, Mr. D'Souza, Mr. Harvey, Mr. Trabucco, Madame Silvestri, Ms. Craig, Mr. Muir, Mrs. Fitzpatrick, Mr. Deneen, Madame Carabas, Ms. Martyrs, Mr. Atta, Lucky, Ashley, Mrs. Galliani, Ms. Paveo, Ms. Pecora. Sincerely, thank you. Mr. Daly, thank you for allowing us this time and space to amplify the voices of our Black and racialized student community. Mr. John, Ms. McCabe, Mrs. Grappo, our staff, custodians, EAs, and our educators, thank you for your support and presence today. It is inadequate to simply be someone who is not racist. We must lead with empathy, humility, and commit to engaging in courageous conversations. To quote Mr. D'Souza, when something is wrong, we must act on it. Though it may be uncomfortable, nothing worthwhile ever comes easy. If we truly want to move beyond performative allyship, we need to start aligning our actions with our words. We need to understand that being anti-racist is a lifelong process of learning and unlearning. Unlearning the biases, language, and perspectives that continue to uphold systemic racism. The late Desmond Tutu believes that everyone should do a little good where you are. It's those little bits put together that overwhelm the world. Let us be mindful of the collective acts of goodness we do today, as they will inherently shape our hopes and dreams for a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Yes, 365 days of the year. I celebrate Black History Month all year round, and I'm so happy for the new theme that Canada is celebrating February Forever, and that is something that is going to really inspire the Black culture to elevate to new heights.
When it comes to tolerance, the thing to remember is tolerance is not enough, because Jesus didn't say, tolerate one another as I have tolerated you. He said, love one another.
I'm not colorblind. I see your color, and I think it's beautiful. Célébrons l'histoire et la culture des Noirs pendant toute l'année.
Black History Month is about the engagement with history to give context to the present. It's an opportunity to hear the stories of our Black communities and to celebrate their achievements.
My ESL students come from many countries, and they educate me on their experiences, and that's how I celebrate February Forever.
I'm Black History, and so are you.
Get in front there. Get in the front. Come on.